Bodybuilding is a sport in which participants are solely judged based on muscular appearance and symmetry. The goal of a bodybuilder is to increase muscle mass through muscle hypertrophy throughout the off-season, and then to decrease as much body fat percentage without sacrificing their muscle gains as they near their competition date. In order for this physiological adaptation to occur, bodybuilders must follow a strategically planned resistance training program. However, the main contributor to this increase in body size is nutrition. Without following an appropriate strict diet, individuals will take much longer in seeing the specific adaptations that they are training for, essentially wasting valuable time. Natural bodybuilding is rapidly increasing in the United States. However, evidence-based nutrition recommendations for it are lacking. There are many paths that individuals can take in order to prepare for contests. There are wrong ways to go about preparing for competitions, and there are also ways which will allow competitors to appropriate macronutrient breakdown to achieve their optimal body composition for their competition date. This video will hopefully bring awareness to what natural bodybuilders should be consuming to decrease body fat percentage, while still maintaining muscle mass. Throughout the video, we will cover topics such as the amount of calories the bodybuilders are recommended to consume in order to see optimal results, as well as the appropriate distribution of macronutrients. Also, we will go over protein and carbohydrate recommendations for post-training sessions to increase protein synthesis and muscle glycogen. There are 3 phases prior to competition day that we will be covering in this video. They are the preparation phase, which could also be considered the off-season. This phase occurs 20 weeks out from the day of competition. The pre-competition phase, or the in-season, occurs about 12 weeks out. And the peak week is the week leading up to the day of competition. The purpose of the preparation phase is used mainly for muscle hypertrophy and increasing overall body composition. To have this increase in muscle mass, a bodybuilder must always be in a positive energy balance, meaning that they should always be consuming more calories than they are burning on any given day. The majority of the calories during the preparation phase should be coming from carbohydrates, so that the bodybuilders may have enough energy to complete the various training sessions that they have set up per day. However, bodybuilders must also ensure that they are taking in enough amino acids in the body, which are essential for protein synthesis. After reviewing a variety of original research articles on nutrition recommendations for bodybuilders, we concluded that to optimize results in the preparation phase, it is evident that bodybuilders should be consuming a total of roughly 3,214.8 plus or minus 1,023.4 kilocalories per day. To appropriately distribute macronutrients, we recommend carbohydrate intakes to be anywhere from 4 to 7 grams per kilogram of body weight. Protein intake should be from 2.2 to 3.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. And fat intake should be about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. A common trend that we were able to observe between the studies was that from the total amount of calories consumed, 55 to 60% of those calories was coming from the carbohydrates, 25 to 30% came from proteins, and 15 to 20% came from fats. The recommendation for post-training macronutrient intake is to take over 7 grams of amino acids or proteins and 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per hour at 30-minute intervals for 4 hours for carbohydrates that have a high glycemic index. The purpose of the pre-contest phase is to retain muscle mass and decrease body fat. This is done by reducing their carbohydrate and fat intake while staying consistent with the amount of protein they consume. To achieve this goal, bodybuilders should be in a negative energy balance, meaning more energy must be expended than consumed so that the body fat can be oxidized. This means most calories during the pre-contest phase should be coming from proteins. Higher protein intakes will help maintain muscle mass and provide a larger thermic effect that may aid in reducing body fat. Although there is a reduction of carbohydrates in this phase, consumption of this macronutrient should still be at a moderate level, because in order to maintain the muscle mass, the bodybuilder should be able to maintain their training intensity and volume at high levels, and this requires adequate muscle glycogen stores. After reviewing a variety of original research articles on nutrition recommendations for bodybuilders, we concluded that to optimize results in the pre-contest phase, it is recommended that bodybuilders should be consuming a total of roughly 3,039.5 plus or minus 796.6 kilocalories per day. Compared to the preparation phase diet, the pre-contest should be hypoenergetic, meaning there is a 15% decrease in energy intake. To appropriately distribute the macronutrients in this phase, we recommend the carbohydrate intake to be roughly 92.8 plus or minus 142.5 grams per day. Protein intake should be 252.9 plus or minus 76.4 grams a day. And the fat intake should be about 61.7 plus or minus 21.7 grams per day. Of the total calories consumed, it would be best if 41% of those calories came from the carbohydrates, 30% came from the protein, and 29% from the fats, to result in the greater fat to lean mass ratio, according to Lehman et al. The purpose of the peak week is to attempt to achieve the leanest possible appearance and enhance muscular size and definition by reducing extracellular water content. To achieve this goal, bodybuilders commonly practice carbohydrate loading in an attempt to raise muscle glycogen levels and increase muscle size. The recommended amount of total calories that should be consumed is 2,660.6 plus or minus 571.3 kilocalories per day. The macronutrient distribution for the final week before competition should be 340.6 plus or minus 156.5 grams per day for carbohydrates, 243 plus or minus 64.2 grams per day for the proteins, and 45.4 plus or minus 20.3 grams per day for fats. In this final week, the bodybuilders also go through carb loading, where they will consume regular carb intake for the first 1 to 3 days of that week, and then consume 10 grams per kilogram of body weight per day of carbohydrates for the last 4 to 6 days leading up to the day of competition. Nutrient timing for all 3 phases stayed consistent and did not fluctuate much. So again, the recommendation for post-training macronutrient intake is to take over 7 grams of amino acids or proteins and 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per hour at 30-minute intervals for 4 hours for carbohydrates that have a high glycemic index. If a bodybuilder wishes to improve his performance in the sport by reducing the body fat percentage and still maintaining a high fat-free mass, then they should be educated on the appropriate macronutrient distribution and how to prepare for competition following a strict diet. We had concluded that for optimal results in the preparation phase, a bodybuilder should be in a positive energy balance, with more of the calories coming from carbohydrates than any other macronutrient, to be able to work out various times a day at extremely high intensities. As they near the competition date and enter the pre-competition phase, bodybuilders must begin to taper down their diets and decrease the overall caloric intake, primarily the amount of fat and carbohydrates to decrease the percent of body fat. However, they must still maintain similar protein intakes to those of the off-season to prevent muscle atrophy during this phase. In the peak week, the bodybuilders try and achieve the leanest possible appearance by raising their muscle glycogen levels through the practice of carbohydrate loading. Following the nutrition recommendations that we have provided should optimize results and enhance overall performance in the sport of bodybuilding.